And now to present for this award, political reporter and founder of Publicola.net, welcome Josh Feit, everybody! Hello. So talk about test of time, right? I mean, the movie was made 21 years ago, and you know, corporate power and corporate accountability and layoffs and recessions and that's all we're hearing about right now, and that's exactly what this movie was about back then, obviously about GM. In fact, test of time, even more, GM is at the center of what's currently going on with the $30 billion bailout that they got this year. And not only is Michael Moore's movie sort of about corporate power and corporate accountability, meaning, you know, the role of corporations that they play in the political drama and our economy, and sort of introduce the concept of corporate power. I think a lot of the mainstream audience, well, apparently not that many people saw the movie, didn't get nominated, but at the time. But it's also literally about the process of that inquiry about corporations and corporate accountability, because the film, clearly, as we all know, Michael Moore goes around trying to get an interview with Roger Smith, who's the CEO of General Motors at the time, who was fired a year later and who died in 2007, actually. And so it highlights that process of corporate power and corporate accountability. What a lot of people might not remember about the movie, and what I didn't remember about the movie after rewatching it to do this crazy speech, pretentious speech, is that he actually does get a Q&A with Roger Smith in the movie. It happens at the very end of the movie. He crashes a GM Christmas party or Christmas event where Roger Smith is speaking, and he gets to get off a couple questions. And that's a profound moment, right? If the concept of the movie is corporate accountability, and Michael Moore actually literally gets to put the mic to Roger Smith, that's that profound moment. That's an act of holding corporations accountable. Accountable for, we all know Michael Moore's from Flint, and they closed down all the GM plants in Flint, which is where GM was founded. And it's where the United Auto Workers Union was founded in the 30s. Anyway, so what does he ask him, right? That's important. And he says two things. He says, hey, do you know that some people in Flint, former GM workers, were evicted from their house last night, is what Michael Moore says to Roger Smith. It's obviously Christmas Eve that happened, so it's pretty startling. And what Roger Smith says is, oh, well, that's not General Motors' fault. It's the landlord's fault, and you talk to the landlord. And then Michael Moore has a follow-up question. He says, will you come to Flint and come see what's happening there? And Roger Smith says, no, I won't, and turns away. And so there's a couple of things about that are interesting to me. Is one, and this is a side note, the blaming the landlord as opposed to like acknowledging that GE has a role in this is funny, because 20 years on, when GE goes under, they turn to the government for help. And they sort of say, what can you do for me? We're so important to you. But in the moment when they're laying off people, and by the way, General Motors at its height in the 80s employed about 350,000 people. They now employ about I think 64,000, some number. So it's like an 80% decrease in the number of jobs that GM provides. So I'm not sure how important they are to our economy, despite the $30 billion bailout. So the fact that he avoids that question and he sort of passes the buck is interesting to me. But anyway, what's beautiful about this movie is, so that question that Michael Moore asks actually isn't the ultimate question that you want to ask, right? Like, he is kind of pushing Roger Smith, you need to come to see what you've wrought, and that's significant, but it's not a solution, right? Like, it's not kind of the movie. The one thing that's interesting about Roger to me is it doesn't offer a solution, just kind of a critique. So forward 20 years, and GM is at the center of what's happening in this country, and the Obama bailout. Yes, Obama did do the bailout. And Michael Moore actually wrote an editorial about it, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know if anyone picked it up. He wrote it on his blog. Publicola printed it. I thought it was exciting. And what he does there is he does offer a solution to this same issue that's continued today. And he talks about that General Motors should transform its economy and it should create green jobs. And I mean, that's kind of a Democratic Party line. I think it's a powerful line. I think it's probably correct. And to me, what's interesting about that, what's interesting about the movie is that this movie creates a dialogue, right? The fact that the issues in play at the movie at the time propel Michael Moore to come to a place where he's kind of, the inquiry is alive, right? It's continuing today. And not to get too deep about it, but that's sort of what our country's about. Like, the Constitution's a living document, and we kind of advance ideas and keep having the conversation. And I think that that's what this movie does. And if you watch that movie again, you can see that it's like pushing for a solution. It doesn't have one. And here we are 20 years later, GM at the heart of the matter, and Michael Moore there kind of offering solutions. So I think it's an awesome movie, and you should all rewatch it, which I did last night. I thought it was rad. So congratulations to Michael Moore.